A few months back, I told you all of a tale of a wrestling superstar that never quite made it. His name was Dr. Gildo, and although he had the talent, he just didn't have enough skill to make it to the big time. When he got let go from the Tecmo wrestling circuit, he tried backyard wrestling, along with a bit of MMA, but still couldn't find the success that he was looking for. But then he saw an ad for a wrestling school in the world of the wrestling empire. He signed up, and finally, for the first time in his career, he saw the chance to reach the stars he was aiming for. In this wrestling empire, Dr. Gildo had two options. He could either participate in the wrestling school to build his legacy, or take the opportunity to be the manager, booking matches for one of the several different federations at offer, such as Maple Leaf Grappling and All-American Wrestling. Dr. Gildo decided that he wanted to wrestle, not manage, so he signed up for classes in the wrestling school, a highly esteemed franchise that aimed to build the talent of its class to prepare the superstars for the higher-tiered competition. Dr. Gildo opted not to take the persona of one of the existing residents, and instead altered his image to what pleased him, down to his costume, moveset, entrance music, and so on. Once he was ready, he learned he had two ways to go: either go right into the match that he was booked in for that week, or roam around backstage, mingling with the other celebrities, making friends or enemies. When Dr. Gildo stepped into the ring, his passion for wrestling returned. He started with standard singles matches, where he shook off the ring rust and actually managed to win a few events. He learned that performing moves came back easily to him. He could perform standard strikes and grapples, run towards his opponent without getting gassed, and pick up objects. When tying up with his opponent, Dr. Gildo had different movesets available, depending on where he was looking and what figurative switch he wanted to flip. It was all easy for him to remember. Over his lifetime, Dr. Gildo had continued to perfect technical wrestling, with submissions being his expertise. Dr. Gildo learned that in the Wrestling Empire universe, it was a challenge to keep someone in a submission without being countered, and worse, even he found that kicking out of submissions would be a challenge. But Dr. Gildo refused to give up, and his continued effort rewarded him with more than enough submission victories. After a few weeks in the Empire, Dr. Gildo realized that this environment was much different than the one he was used to in Tecmo Wrestling. Here, plenty of hazards lay strewn around the outside of the ring, and referees were keen to turn a blind eye to anything provided that it wasn't happening inside the ring itself. Weapon strikes, throws into the crowd, interference from other wrestlers, these were all mainstays to the harsh world of modern wrestling. The promoters weren't exactly happy when mischief occurred either. If Dr. Gildo decided to suplex someone into one of the announcing tables, he occasionally found himself liable to pay for the damages. Either before or after the match, if Dr. Gildo decided to use his free time wisely, he would often visit the gym. There were about 5 different activities for him to engage in, such as running a small track near a wall, climbing a wooden structure, or throwing a few strikes at a punching bag. These activities would tire him out quickly, but he found that by going to the gym, his abilities, such as strength, agility, or stamina, would improve. Dr. Gildo quickly found a good balance between spending free time and saving his endurance for the upcoming matches. Dr. Gildo also learned that sleep wasn't the only way to replenish his stamina. Dr. Gildo found that the arena hosts left food items strewn around the world. By picking up and consuming these items, Dr. Gildo would feel some of this strength return, at a small monetary cost. Dr. Gildo even noticed that one of the referees during a match was eating a chicken leg, which he found absurd, but he didn't dare say something in fear of retaliation. Although the wrestling school was a great way to start his career again, Dr. Gildo quickly learned that it wasn't the best place for him, as he wasn't making any money, even though he was paying for food and hotel rooms. But he kept putting his time in, and eventually he got the chance to sign with the Maple Leaf Grappling Club. With this, he got a new contract where he actually made money if he won matches. Dr. Gildo realized that the bookers of these federations didn't always have the wrestler's best interests in mind, and often wanted to throw a clause into the contract that didn't necessarily work for the best, such as only getting paid when he loses to help make another wrestler more popular. Dr. Gildo was able to negotiate a better settlement at a slightly reduced pay rate though. Dr. Gildo continued working his way up the ranks, taking down wrestlers as well as losing a few well-fought matches. He eventually got a title shot and won within seconds, but lost the match a few weeks later when he stumbled during a Buried Alive match and got smashed into a casket during a reversal, resulting in a loss. Dr. Gildo was unable to get another title shot while in Maple Leaf Grappling, so he moved to All-American Wrestling with a much more lucrative contract. But this was after he was able to put serious harm on one of his rivals by throwing them into a table and possibly permanently paralyzing him. The diagnosis for this wrestler is still pending. From there, Dr. Gildo continued his career, with his love of the sport rekindling. He met a lot of interesting characters, with over 300 wrestlers employed by the wrestling empire. He allied with a crazy gun-wielding star that enjoyed holding it up to people, but thankfully never found himself on the business end of it. Many of the stars also wanted to pick fights with Dr. Gildo, with the worst offense being a surprise spear into a bar table. Although an expert technician, Dr. Gildo couldn't escape the choke, and therefore missed his curtain call, damaging his reputation slightly due to the missed match. To this day, Dr. Gildo is still a top competitor in the All-American Wrestling leg of the wrestling empire. Lots of blood and sweat had been spilled, both in the ring and out of it. He participated in a podcast episode where he told his from rags to riches story. He also had to defend himself in court when he used the camera to rearrange a rival's face. And that concludes the update on Dr. Gildo's career. If you get the chance to watch All-American Wrestling on TV, you might just see him in the time of his life. Okay, now that that's done, let's talk about the game itself quickly. Wrestling Empire is crazy, silly, and entirely enjoyable. It doesn't take itself seriously at all. Performing moves is simple, with one button assigned to each of grappling, striking, running, and picking up items. With the semi-physics-based moves, some attacks can link into each other, and tossing opponents out of the ring and into objects is easy enough to do. Many of the 350 or so wrestlers are based on real characters, but any of them can be altered to your liking. And if you don't want to do either of the career modes, you get a hefty multitude of exhibition options, from having a ring in almost all the accessible backroom areas, to different weather effects, flooded outside ring area, a cage, and so on. Seriously, there are a ton of options available. And really, that's the best part of Wrestling Empire. The sheer amount of stuff available to you. Be a jerk and strike anyone you want with a barbell. Get run over by a person in a wheelchair. Set up a ladder in the ring and suplex your opponent into it. Have a manager keep your opponent on the outside of the ring, leading to an easy ring out. Slug it out in a first blood match. Play the game your way. And I haven't even tried the booking mode yet, because I'm having way too much fun seeing what other crazy nonsense I can experience in the standard career. No, it's not the most realistic wrestling game in the world, but it doesn't try to be. I'd compare it to something along the lines of No Mercy mixed with an early PS1 SmackDown game. If you're a fan of wrestling, this game is a must play. Final score? 7 out of 7. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.